Hi, Shepherd's Pie. Greetings from the Philippines. We're back. Sitting down here with my new friend Peter, who's been kind enough to agree to have a little chat with us and tell us about his life story. Now, I've known Peter for a few weeks now. We take part in some of the local quizzes. And we won last night with champions. I just thought I'd get that out. A team of two stood against money.
But we should have called ourselves team of two.
Team of two, that's what we should have done. Anyway, got that out of the way. Now, Peter's been kind enough to sit down and tell us his story. So I've known him for a few weeks now. I know this is going to be an interesting interview because this man has done a lot. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. So Peter, tell us all about it. Where did you start? Where are you from, mate?
Oh, where do I start? Well, I'm from Essex, probably the same as you. Are you from Essex? You're a West Ham supporter, so...
Well, East London, Essex, mind you.
East London, yeah. So I'm from a place called Clacton-on-Sea.
I know Clacton.
Born there, raised there. Everybody goes, oh, do you know Butlins? Yeah, I worked at Butlins. I was a barrow boy when I was 9 years old. Well, I started working when I was 9. But then...
I was hoping you were going to say you're a red coat. I'd have loved that.
I wish I had been a red coat. You know, there were lots of people that came through the red coat system. Cliff Richard was at Butlins when I was a boy. Lots of other. Who was the guy that played the trumpet? Roy Castle came through that. But lots of other red coats came through Clacton.
Yeah, it was the thing, and a lot of celebrities.
And became famous, yeah.
So you were a barrow boy with the age of 8?
I was a barrow boy when I was young, and I did that right until probably I was a teenager, probably 15, 16. Then I worked, because Clacton was a tourist town, a lot of tourists came there.
Well, that's what I want to ask you, because in the time I've known Clacton, in my lifetime, it's kind of been going downhill.
Absolutely.
But presumably in that time it was like thriving, was it?
It was in the late 60s, early 70s. It was a hopping town. In the mid '60s, of course, you had the mods and the rockers that used to go there and fight on the beaches there. But it's gradually gone downhill. But in the late '60s, early '70s, it was a hopping town. 30,000 people lived there in the winter, 80,000 in the summer.
So were you a modern rocker, or was that before your time?
I was too young for that, but I stayed out of it. Me and the rest of the guys that I hung out with used to go and stand on Pier Gap and watch them all fight on the beach and think how crazy they were. Brighton Rock.
Okay, so what happened next?
I went to the high school in Clacton, did all the things that you do. You do your O-levels, your A-levels, you go to college. And I went to college in Essex, a place called the North East London Poly, studied business there. And in 3 years, I probably learned nothing. But one of my jobs, I learned more in 3 months than I did in 3 years of college.
But you had the plan to go into business, did you? That's why you were doing the business?
No. I actually studied business because I really didn't know what else to study. I finished school with a couple of A-levels, one in economics and one in mathematics, but I didn't know what to do, and I just fell into it.
Enjoy it? Or was it academia not for you?
No, actually, yeah, I enjoyed it. But when I left college, I didn't know what to do, and I got a job. Boy, this is how stupid I am. I went to a place in London called Brook Street Bureau. Probably a lot of the people are not going to know this. I guess they must have fallen by the wayside. But I went into this Brook Street Bureau, and they said, we got a lot of jobs. We have one assistant cameraman at Paul Raymond Reviews.
Okay, I know Paul Raymond.
You know Paul Raymond?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a country boy from Clacton-on-Sea, and I said, Paul Raymond Reviews, I don't know them. And it was New Year's Eve, and they said, well, phone them up. They said, do you know anything about photography? I said, actually, I do know a little bit about photography because when I was at school and after school, I had my own dark room. And I said, I know a little bit about it. So they phoned up, and I could hear them on the other line. They were having a party And I thought, no, maybe I don't want to work with that group of people. Have you got any more jobs? They said, yeah, we got one at National Car Parks, assistant to the superintendent engineer. I went, oh yeah, that sounds better than Paul Raymond Reviews. I didn't know at the time he owned Mayfair magazine and all these clubs where they took all these nude photographs of girls and models.
You used to run the Raymond Review bar on Brewer Street in Surrey.
Oh, you did?
That was
so you know
it.
then. Yeah. And I turned down an opportunity to go and interview for them for a National Car Park job, which I did and I took.
But I bet the uniform was nice.
Well, actually, I worked in the head office. These two guys that owned National Car Parks at the time, I don't know if they still do, went around London after World War II buying up bomb sites and converting them into car parks. Who knew that it was going to be big business, 50 years later?
Wow, yeah. Well, they obviously did.
Yeah, they did.
And how long did you do that for?
I did it for a year until I fell into. They opened up a computer department in National Car Parks because they were issuing not credit cards but car park cards, and people would show their card to go in and out, and they would charge them automatically on their bank accounts. So we had a computer there, and I kind of got interested in it, and the guy that ran the computer department, there was only one of him, said, I think you'd be good at it. So I started applying for jobs outside of National Car Parks in computers.
All right, so you're a self-taught kind of thing, like.
No, I'm not going to say self-taught because computers, although I did do computer programming at college, I didn't know that I would end up in computers, so I knew a little bit about it. But I am.
And what year is this, roughly?
75, 76.
So what you were doing on computers would be nothing compared to what they're doing on computers now. I mean, it'd be very basic.
Computers in those days, I ended up working for British Airways, and they had computers that were so big you couldn't even get them in this room. The tape drives and the disk drives that they utilised were, they were like that bloody freezer over there. They were as big as that freezer. And my job in computer operating was to change the disks, to change the disk drives and the tape drives, that kind of stuff. And that's where I broke my teeth there.
And how long were you there for?
I was there for 7 years.
Oh, a long time then.
Yeah, a long time. And they were on cutting edge in terms of computers because they had planes going somewhere all the time, all over the world, and we were hooked up with a program to all of the airports around the world that British Airways flew to.
Right.
So I think they were one of the first companies in the world to have what they call a real-time, an online system, a real-time system.
That's back in the days when British Airways was good.
I'm not sure they were ever good, but yeah.
So what did you do after that?
Well, that took me down another avenue. They had a magazine that come out every week, and everybody in the computer industry is always looking for another job, and I was no different. And I applied for a job in Bermuda, for a bank in Bermuda using real-time applications. So I knew all about it, and I was lucky enough to get a job with a bank in Bermuda.
Wow. And that was living in Bermuda then?
That was living in Bermuda. Why would I not do that?
Yeah, no, why indeed.
Yeah.
Never been to Bermuda, but I've heard, I imagine it's a very nice place.
It's a beautiful, beautiful island. But the problem with Bermuda, if there is a problem, it's small. And so you get to know everybody on the island very quickly. And
how small is it?
It's about 1 mile wide.
Oh wow, I thought it was bigger than that.
No, and about 20 miles long, but in the shape of a croissant.
Okay.
Or a shrimp, if you like, when you know.
Oh, I had no idea it was that small.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, I'm not going to pry into what you're earning, but I know, because I often look on the cost of living index, Switzerland's the most expensive place in the world, then Bermuda. So I imagine it was a good crack.
That wasn't the case when I went there, and I went there in 82 to 83 I was there. And the bank paid for my apartment, the bank that I was working for, and of course it was all tax-free. So I was quite comfortable living and working in Bermuda.
Just to jump back 1 second, because I'm always interested in stuff like this. When you were working for British Airways, were they good on the perks? Did you get free flights and stuff like that?
More than it was much more than just the perks. Because we were in the computer department, we worked a shift pattern that was 6 days on, 4 days off.
Nice.
6 days on, 4 days off. 6 days on, 4 days off. And then, I started with 25 vacation days way back in 75, 76. And on top of that, I got 10 public holidays. But because we were doing shift work, we had to work the public holidays. So in essence, I got 35 days off that I could take any time I want. So I could take a block of 6 days. I would have 4 days off each end.
Yeah.
And so I could take 6 days off and go away somewhere for 2 weeks.
Lovely.
And I could do that 6 times a year.
Lovely. That's why I actually like about the Air Force. We did 4 days on, 4 days off.
Yeah.
So if you timed your leave in the middle of the 4 days, you get.
And then not only that, the flights in those days, first of all, they were not expensive. It was about the time that Freddie Laker had his $100 or $99
I remember those days. Yeah.
to the USA, to Los Angeles or New York or wherever he was flying. And so we had to compete with him. And then if you worked for British Airways, you only paid 10% or sometimes even free, because they would have these specials that came out. You wouldn't have to pay 10%. You could get them for free if you'd worked for the airline for a year or 2 or 3 years, whatever they deemed. So yeah, the perks were great.
And would they upgrade you when you got on the flight, when you said you worked for British Airways?
In those days, I'm not sure. I can't remember. But certainly, I stayed in the industry after that, and yeah, they would upgrade into business or first class even.
Lovely. So how long were you in Bermuda for?
About 18 months. And a lot of people that joined at the same time as I did lasted about 18 months. As I said, it's a very small island. You get to know everybody very quickly, and you get island fever. You want to move. You want to go to somewhere else.
All right. So where did you go?
After that, I went to the States. I moved over to California. I flew from Bermuda into Boston, and I didn't rent a car. I delivered a car.
Right.
So they gave me a car to deliver. It was a Volvo, and I drove all the way across the states from Massachusetts to California to Los Angeles and delivered a car. It took me, I don't know, a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So
what age were you then?
let me just think about that one. 80. I was about 30, 31.
I'm still young enough to be living the life and enjoying it.
I enjoyed it, yeah. And then I stayed in San Francisco. Loved San Francisco. One, I was working illegally there, but in those days, I'm going back to 82, 83, they just gave me a social security number, and nobody that you work for bothered about whether you were legal or not, as long as you had a social security number.
Well, no, I'm sure the statute of limitations has gone on that, so I won't worry about it.
Yeah, they figured out, you needed a bank account when you were in America if you wanted to transfer money over, but you couldn't open up a bank account without a social security number. So they gave you a chit and sent you down to social security, basically, and I said, hey, I need a number, I want to open up a bank account. They said, oh, here it is. Yeah, go and open it.
Didn't want to see your green card or anything on it?
No. Or I didn't even have a green card.
No, I know you didn't, but I'm assuming
you didn't need a green. I think you may have needed a green card then, but it wasn't something that was big in those days.
Okay. So what? And how long were you in America for?
Still am.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm an American citizen now. Oh, I'm not sure if I want to put that in, but yeah, I'm an American citizen now. So.
Okay, so we've got a lot to cover then. So you drove over, you were living in San Francisco. What were you doing?
I was working actually, my father was a painter decorator, so I knew something about construction and painting and decorating. So I did a lot of that stuff for 2 or 3 years until I actually met and married my wife, and then I got a green card.
Okay, so I'm guessing then, because obviously you had a computer background.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley and that weren't there. I mean, that wasn't the place for computers.
Yes, it was.
Oh, was it?
It was in its infancy. It was around the time that the Commodore 64 came out.
I remember those.
About that time. But in those days, when it was hard to sell anybody buying a computer because the printers were so slow that if somebody wanted it, let's say, to print out a music catalogue, it took them days to print out one copy of a catalogue that they could send out to somebody.
Wow.
So,
Things have changed.
indeed.
Okay, so you did the painting and decorating. Were you doing that for like 3 years?
Until I became legal, and then I worked for a company called Google Industries. I left California, moved over to New York, and married my wife, and became legal. Worked for a company called Goodwill Industries, and Goodwill Industries are like, I don't know who's going to see this, but Sue Ryder in the UK, or Oxfam in the UK.
Like a charity.
They it was a charity, yeah, and they ran, operated, and made money from thrift shops, they called them, but they were second-hand stores. And I worked for them running. I started off as a store manager, but for some reason, very quickly they promoted me to operations manager,
All right.
and I still don't know why, but they did.
Was that just for New York or the whole country?
Well, actually, Goodwill Industries is like chapters. So I worked for the chapter that was in New York,
Okay.
but they would have one in New Jersey, they'd have one in Washington, D.C., they would have one in Seattle. They had them all over the country, maybe a couple of hundred of them. But each chapter was individually operated as a standalone company.
And how long did you do that for?
7 years.
7 years.
It looks like I get the 7-year itch because I work
It's
with
better than some other itches.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I thought, well, you know what? I can do this. I could do this on my own. I don't need an organisation to do it. So what I did then is I opened up my own stores in New York City.
But not as a charity, this was a private business.
Well, yeah, as a private business, yeah. But what I did is I hooked myself up with a church that, and I would take in donations for them, for the church. I would pay the church on a monthly basis for the donations because they weren't getting any money. You know, they needed money. All these churches always need money.
They do indeed.
I would pay them for the donations that I received on their behalf, and then I would take the donations. I would throw the garbage away. I would keep the good stuff, price it up, and put it on the racks in the store and sell it.
Nice. How many stores did you have?
4,
Four. And they were all in New York.
all in New York City. One on the Upper West. I don't know if anybody knows New York. On the Upper
Well,
West
you'll be
side.
surprised. 67% of my subscribers are Americans. So I'm sure some of them will.
I had 2 down in the village. One on the east. On one West Village. One on 14th Street, which is a huge street in New York City, and then another one over on 3rd Avenue and 29th Street.
Imagine if it's anything like London, the rents must have been very expensive, weren't they? I mean,
Unbelievable.
yeah, so you
Unbelievable.
must have been doing well to
One
make
of the
a profit,
rents
I know.
was going back now to. I worked there for 7 years. I'm going back to the early 90s, and one of the stores was $25,000 a month rent, and that was a hard nut to crack. You know, you got to make that. You got to pay the staff. You got to pay the church, and then you want some over for yourself at the end.
Why have you been so greedy? So, how long did you do that for?
I did that for. Let me think. A few years. I think. I joined 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. I did that. Yeah.
Didn't quite make the 7 this time.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I had 2 daughters. I don't want to go there, but they were growing up without. And I would go home. My wife would say, "Oh, this one started talking today. This one was walking." And
Because you're working a lot, I
because
guess.
of course, I was. To start with, I was a solo act. But then when you get 4 stores, you have to bring in managers, and it's very, very time consuming. And you're running around the different stores after they've closed. And so sometimes I didn't get home till 11 o'clock or midnight. And my daughters were in bed, my wife was in bed, and I had to get up and get out at 7 o'clock the next morning.
So did you sell the chain or?
I did. I sold out Two of the stores I sold out to my competitors, some other people that saw me doing it, and then they did it themselves. One store I sold, two other stores I sold. One was I was in a partnership with a guy. I sold it to him, and then I just sold the first store that I had, the last store, to somebody who wanted to buy it.
You weren't tempted just to cut down to what you probably couldn't make enough money out
Well,
of it.
it wasn't that. I probably could have made enough money, but I just wanted to spend time with my daughters.
Are they still going, the stores?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been in New York
You've
City in years.
You've moved on from that.
Yeah.
So what did you do next?
Well, again, what happened? I've been so lucky, really. I was reading the Sunday paper, and United Airlines were looking for salespeople, somebody with airline background. And I had an airline background. I had a sales background now at this point. So I applied for a sales position with United Airlines. And again, I was lucky enough that they gave me a test. They brought everyone. It was a cattle call. They brought in 100 people, and they kept maybe half a dozen behind to take further tests. And I was lucky enough to be one of them.
So what were you selling?
As all airlines do, they have to sell seats on aircraft.
Oh, well, I get that. You don't go door to door knocking on a door. How do you sell them?
No, to corporations.
Okay.
You would call on Oracle, Microsoft, sometimes city. The city themselves, New York City or Queens. They would want to send people various places. So you would try to go and tell them all about your product, and then sign a contract with them that they can use you, and only you, on these destinations, and you will give them a discount.
And you negotiate a price.
Exactly. So I was really negotiating contracts with corporations and travel agencies.
So I've got a question for you now that I've always found fascinating, but you might not know. You might have an idea.
Go on.
But when you see a lot of people on business class when you get on the flights, and you see how expensive the seats are, you think, who would spend money on that? And then when you get talking to some of these people, because I've done it a couple of times, but I've done it through like No Points and that, and Virgin.
Right.
They're nearly all businesses.
Absolutely.
So how many people what percentage are actually paying for the seats on a
Very
flight?
few. Very few.
It's all,
Very few.
yeah.
Mostly, it's corporations who buy business class seats because, again, they want their staff who are flying, let's say, from New York City to the Middle East. They want them to be fresh when they get there because they're going to go and negotiate contracts with other companies in the Middle East. So you don't want them sitting in a tight seat at the back of the plane. You want them to be fresh and on their game when they arrive in the Middle East.
No, I can get that.
Probably about 75%, 80% are businesses buying tickets.
Okay, it's interesting. And obviously it's the economy of scale, so you can't give me the exact figure. But what kind of discounts would they get? 50%? I mean, if they're doing that?
No, never 50%. No, sometimes as high as 25%. But it's a question of this: the more money you give us, the bigger the discount we're going to give you. So I've seen it up as high as 40% in the case of the World Bank, because they give us, or they used to give us, $40 million a year. The more you give us, the bigger the discount.
That's like economy of scale.
But once again, only if it's available. We'll give you a 40% discount, but the seat has to be available. If somebody's paying for the seat,
The full price.
we're not going to discount it to you.
Okay, that's fair enough. How long did you do that job for them?
7 years.
Why?
Well, actually, to be quite honest, I was laid off. After 2001, a lot of people. 2001, of course, the World Trade Center bombing hit, and SARS hit at the same time, and there was something else that hit. I forget what it was, but business went down to almost zero.
Right.
So they laid a lot of people off in 2001. Luckily, they didn't lay me off. But then when they went through it again just a few years later, I'm going to 2000 and they went bankrupt. Sorry, that's right. They didn't go bankrupt then. They went bankrupt in about 2006, something like that. And then they laid a lot of people off because they had to get their, you've got to have your income and you've got to have your your costs. They wanted to get their costs down, and they laid off a lot of people that had been working for them for a long time, and their salaries were
And you were one of
a
those.
little bit. I was one of those.
If they hadn't laid you off, how long do you think you'd have done it for?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I joined them, I thought, okay, I'm back in the airline business. I'm going to stay in the airline business. But when you get laid off, I actually joined a travel company for a while, and then I went back into the airline business. So how long I would have stayed with them, I don't know. The perks were great. You know, you flew for free, and you got upgraded. I travelled all over the world, mostly for free, mostly in
And that's not for work, that's for pleasure.
both,
Right.
for work and pleasure. But no, if I travelled for work, they had to give me business class if it was available, or first class if it was available.
Nice.
So, but if I did it on my own dime, they could upgrade me. They would upgrade me to first class. Yeah.
Lovely.
But I would pay 10% of the ticket price.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's worth it for first class, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was the travel agency doing?
Well, they were a German agency. They were historically they've been in business a long while. They had good discounts with Lufthansa. In fact, the company was owned by Lufthansa at one point. A couple of guys bought them out, but they kept the contracts in place. And then United was in a partnership with Lufthansa and some other airlines called the Star Alliance. And because Lufthansa had offered these guys big discounts, by default United Airlines did the same thing. And they were just a big German company that worked in New York City with a lot of German companies, especially German banks.
Right. Deutsche Bank and all, they all stuck with them.
Exactly, and other banks as well.
And why did you give that up?
Why? I got screwed.
Oh,
I
it's
signed.
about time you had some bad luck. No, you've been doing so well.
I signed a contract with New York City, and they were supposed to give me this percentage of the business, but the owner said, "No, that's too much money for you. We're going to cut it down." I went.
Yeah,
Do they know? You know what that means?
I don't know what that means.
So I went like that, and I left them. But luckily, I'm so lucky. Luckily, I applied for a job with Etihad Airways. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I've flown
I
it.
applied with a job for Etihad in their sales department, and I was hired. I was hired by a guy who, when I was working for United Airlines, I don't know if you can put all this in. His wife's parents were coming over from New Zealand on United Airlines, and he said, "Listen, can you do me a favour? Can you upgrade them?" And I said, "No, Tony, I cannot. Why should I upgrade your wife's parents?" He said, "Just as a favour." I said, "Okay, fine." And I upgraded them into business class. When I went for the interview at Etihad Airways, he was the guy that interviewed me.
Wow,
So,
that was lucky.
yeah, that was lucky.
And how long?
That's-
Sorry.
And that's why I got the job.
Well, there's nothing
Etihad
wrong with that.
Airways. No.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's the way the world works, mate.
Yeah,
So how long were you with them for?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years, and then now I'm up to about 2012, something like that. 2013, 14. And a friend of mine who owned an agency.
Were you doing the same thing for Etihad as you were doing
Absolutely, sales. In fact, I got some great contracts with.
Who was the better company to work for, Etihad?
Etihad, without a doubt. Etihad. They offered great perks. You know, if you saved money, they matched it. So it was like, I forget how much I had to put into my 401k, but they matched it. It was like getting a 10% increase in salary.
Wow.
It was just a great, easy product to sell. I couldn't sell first class because our business class was so great.
Really?
And they wanted to sell more and more first class. In the end, they put beds in first class. So if you wanted to fly, let's say, from Washington DC to Abu Dhabi, you could do it in a double bed and take your girlfriend.
So I've always marvelled at stuff like that because I've seen the beds and things, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking if ever I had the money to do that, the last thing I would do is sleep through the flight. I would be savouring every
But the
moment,
last
every
thing-
drink and every meal.
Yeah, but the last thing I would do is spend 25 grand
Yeah, exactly.
on a 13-hour flight.
Yeah, I've often marvelled how much money you would have to not think about that. Because you've got to be talking millions and millions, because whichever way you look at it, that is a lot of money for 12 hours.
One of my clients was the embassy of the United Arab Emirates in Washington, D.C. A lot of my clients were embassies, and they didn't care about money.
Now, you've got to be billionaires or a country
especially
like that.
the Middle Eastern embassies.
Mm.
They just didn't care.
Interesting. So we're up to you did 7 years with him.
Yeah, and then a friend of mine offered me, he wanted to open up a call centre in Manila, and he said, do you fancy doing it?
So why?
He had.
Now, why did he ask you why? Why did he think you'd be interested in that? Then
was
it's a big jump from the airlines to doing call centres.
No, I disagree with you. It's not a big jump. He was a big agency. He had tens of millions of dollars of business, and he wanted to keep his costs down. He was paying. He was in Washington D.C. He was paying a lot of money to agents who were booking tickets, and he just wanted to cut that cost down. Sometimes he was paying $200 a ticket, and he wanted, if he could get that down to $5, he would be happy doing that. So I came out here, opened up a call center for him in just outside of Manila, a place called Ortigas, and it was okay until along come COVID, when all the airlines stopped flying and no.
Okay,
tickets
now I
were
understand that
sold.
it wasn't a jump. When you said
Yeah.
BPO, I think it meant like a call centre customer service. So it was to do with airlines and tickets.
Selling-
So
selling
now I
airline
understand why it
tickets,
wasn't. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So COVID hit and that killed.
And that really killed the call center, but a lot of call centers in the Philippines.
But you weren't financially invested in the call centres. You were working for them.
Like,
You were...
that's true. Yeah, but if there's no business, he doesn't want me.
No, I get that you lost
Yeah,
your job, but you didn't
yeah.
lose like seed money or that kind of thing. It wasn't.
No.
We didn't know. Okay.
No.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And has his business recovered or?
No, not. He hasn't reopened that call center. He closed down most of his offices. He owned them all. The offices that he had in the US, he had probably 13 of them, and he closed a lot of those down. He kept 2 or 3 open, and was willing to bite the bullet. But whether they've opened up or not, I don't know.
And you were living in Manila when you were doing this job.
Yeah.
So how did that compare to like living in New York? And I mean, I've never been to Manila for one night, and this is going
Really?
back a few years.
Okay.
Yeah. What was it?
Well, certainly you cannot compare it to New York City. New York City was a thriving, hopping metropolis. You know, everything you wanted was in New York City. And not only that, if you wanted it at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you could go and get it. But in Manila, yeah, it was a hopping city, but it was only open 24 hours in certain places, and maybe you didn't want to go to those places.
Or maybe I would. Did you enjoy working there, living there?
Where?
In Manila, did you enjoy?
Absolutely.
So you like
Absolutely.
Manila life?
Yeah. But I was there, and when COVID came, I was down here. I moved down here.
To do Dumaguete?
Yeah,
Why?
because a friend of mine, Frank, was here,
Okay.
and another friend of mine was here. So I came down and stayed here. Why? Because I liked it. I've been to Dumaguete several times before, and I liked it.
And this brings us up to the present day, does it?
It does. It does. I'm not working now.
But is that because you're waiting for another offer, or you've just decided that's it?
Well, you know what? I don't enjoy not working all the time, but I do enjoy not working some of the time. So yeah, I don't. I'm 71. I'll be 72 soon.
You don't look it, mate. You don't look it.
You're very kind.
I thought you were 80. No, you're a young.
Yeah, that
70,
brings us up
You're a
to
young
that.
71, Peter. So had you been to other parts of the Philippines?
I have. I've been to you name it. I made a point of going all the way down to Mindanao. I've been to let me think, Davao, Surigao, I've been to Leyte, Samar, the island of Cebu, and of course Cebu City. I've been over to Palawan, and I've been up north to the furthest north I've been, I guess, would be Baguio.
Okay.
So I've been all over the islands.
And of all the places you've been to, Dumaguete is your favourite? Or Negros?
Good question. I would say yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's a clean city. It's the streets are wide. They have a one-way system, so it's easy to get round of a daytime. They change that one way of a nighttime. There's lots of expats here. There's good restaurants. I would say it's the nicest place.
That's interesting, because I'm always at grass is greener on the other side. I think I should try this, try that.
Well, yeah,
but a lot of people keep telling me, like, it doesn't get any better than this. So
well,
maybe
you've been to Siquijor. Siquijor's nice.
Yeah, I was there for a few months. Yeah.
Bohol is nice. Yeah.
I'd have to try Bohol. But
Yeah, well, this is it. I bought a scooter and I've driven around. A couple of months ago, I drove from here all the way up to Angeles City, and then back again, taking roads and ferries.
what's Angeles City like?
It's a naughty place. It's not as naughty as it used to be, but it's like those parts of Manila that stay open till 3-4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, no, I understand it's like a patio light. It's there,
Exactly.
thing, but
Exactly.
I've never been. Don't actually have any interest in going there. But I mean, size-wise, is it a big place?
It's relatively big, but probably about the same size as Dumaguete.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And is the whole place a red light district?
No,
parts?
no, absolutely not. No, throughout the Philippines, I've found this. Food is inexpensive. The weather is great, except when it rains non-stop for a week. But the weather is great. It's easy to get around. The restaurants are nice. You can find. I eat a lot of street food. I like street food, but mostly I like the beaches.
Wait, you eat street food in the Philippines?
I do.
What do you like? I've never found anything I like. I love Thai food. I love to come out.
Broaden your horizons, man.
No, I do. I try everything. I've tried a lot a couple of times, but I've just found nothing that I really like.
It's inexpensive, but I like it because it's home cooked food.
So you're talking about the eateries when you say street food, like the cafeteria?
Yeah, I'm talking about but they have these carts. You used to have them in Washington DC as well. You can go out to a cart in Washington DC and buy curry and rice.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking for some tips because whenever I've been down, I've tried some stuff on the boulevard. I've tried this. Everything's been okay. I've never had anything like, God, I'd like to try that again. So I'm always asking people, what should I try? You know what I mean? It's but you don't actually live here, do you? You do like a half and half or something, don't you?
Yeah, well, I lived here for several years, but now I'm up in the mountains in Mabini. It's a bit of a trek.
In where to?
Mabini.
Mabini. I've seen the buses that go there.
Negros Oriental. But Dumaguete itself is a lot nicer than living up in the mountains.
So why do you live up there?
Girlfriend?
Girlfriend?
I don't want to go there.
No, that's fine. Your girlfriend lives up there.
Yeah.
Easy to get to, or?
Relatively easy to get to, but the road from Ba'is up to Mabini is questionable. They fix it, and they fix it for a year, and then it's the road moves, and it's just hard. It's just hard to drive it.
Well, I say on a scooter, but I mean it's not. Presumably it's not busy like.
No, it's quite a quiet drive. It's not busy, but it's challenging to drive it.
Okay, well, I don't think I'll do that then. But I've been tempted to get on the old bus and go to Bias and go just to see. I mean, what's in Mabini? Is there much there?
No, not really. It's. Okay. I mean, how do you judge how good? They have a Jollibee. If you have a Jollibee, then you're considered a big town. So Mabini doesn't even have a Jollibee. It does have a 7-Eleven.
Wow, well I know Tanhai's got a Jollibee, so if it's smaller than Tanhai.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, and how long have you been doing this, like, commuting in and out?
Since November.
Since November?
Yeah. So in what? May now?
Okay.
6 months.
And you come down for the quiz nights?
I do.
Yeah, I do.
I
don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but we won last night. A team of 2 against teams of many.
Yeah, many. One of them had 7 or 8 members.
I've been telling people 20.
But it's all about the questions. If they ask the right questions, then we can win.
Okay. But do you still have a home in America or a base in America?
No, when I got divorced, I had to sell that.
Okay, because I thought when you said the other day you were living half and half, I thought you meant you live half the time in the States and half the time here.
No, half the time in the UK.
All right.
I do go back to Essex and I stay with my sister from time to time, especially if you have medical problems. And I've had a bad knee for a long while. I've got 2 bad knees, but I've had one taken care of. I had 2. What are they called? In your eyes?
Oh, cataract.
Cataract. Yeah, I had 2 cataracts taken care of. So, but I don't think I would like to do that here. I was going. You know, the best things about the Philippines are it's not expensive. It's warm. It's the beaches are great. It's green. But mostly it's the people. The people are wonderful. I'm not going to say I've never met a bad person, but 95% of the people I've met are just wonderful people.
No, I'd agree on that, and I mean, I've not been here long, but I'm surprised how decent a lot of the expats seem to be. I mean, a good bunch of expats seem to get in.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll bring it to an end now because it's been a great interview. Just a quick one. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to pry into your girlfriend, that kind of thing.
No.
Are your long-term plans to stay in the Philippines now, or do you not think that far ahead?
I think my long-term plans are to stay here. Yeah.
And if things went wrong in the Philippines, would you go back to America or England? Are you
That's
done
a great question.
Are you done with the States now, or?
No, no. I've got 2 daughters over in the States. So I'm not done with it, and I've got a lot of friends in the States. Am I done with it? I don't know. Time will tell.
Well, you're a fit young guy. You've got lots of time to make that decision. Well, anyway, it's been a great interview, Pete. I really appreciate you sitting down with us. I know it took me a while to talk you into it, but that's one of the best interviews I've done, mate. I've enjoyed that.
Thank you.
No, thank you for taking the time. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, why the hell not? Just subscribe. You'll make me so happy. If you want to make me happy. But whether you do, whether you don't, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, stay safe, be lucky.